But I think we were far away from the heavy metal thing, because that seems to have they're all quite similar, a lot of these bands. You know? They've all got these sort of, oh, sorry, I'm bumping the mic here. They've all got these pre-planned footsteps and stuff.
And the spandex tights and all the gear.
Yeah, and and they've always got the guy with the blonde robe going.
Yeah.
And the drummer that smiles at the camera.
AC/DC is one of the biggest rock bands in the world, known for their powerful sound, hard-hitting riffs, and electrifying live shows. Over the years, they've shared the stage with some of the best in the business, from Aerosmith to Black Sabbath. But behind all the pyrotechnics and power chords, there's a different story filled with clashes, rivalries, and strong personalities. AC/DC has never been a band to back down, and they've had their fair share of disagreements with other musicians along the way. So here are 6 bands AC/DC refused to share the stage with, and the surprising reasons behind each legendary feud. At number 6, we have the Rolling Stones. Back in 1981, AC/DC was on top of the world. Just a year earlier, they had faced a devastating tragedy, the death of their lead singer, Bon Scott. But instead of falling apart, they came back stronger with a new frontman, Brian Johnson. Together, they released Back in Black, one of the best-selling albums in music history. Their next album, For Those About to Rock We Salute You, was on the verge of becoming their first #1 album in America. AC/DC wasn't just a popular band anymore, they were a global powerhouse. They had gone from opening acts to full-blown headliners. In that same year, the Rolling Stones were gearing up for their extensive Tattoo You tour across the United States. The band was at the top of its game, with the album Tattoo You dominating the charts and featuring hits like Start Me Up. The success showed when the tour wrapped up. It was the highest-grossing concert tour of 1981, earning over $50 million and drawing more than 2 million fans. The Stones offered AC/DC a huge sum of money to be their opening act, a dream opportunity for most bands. But AC/DC flatly said no. According to Malcolm Young, he said, "We're better than the Stones." It was a bold move, but it came from confidence, not arrogance. AC/DC had built their career on doing things their own way. They believed their music could fill the same arenas without relying on anyone else's name. Malcolm told their management that AC/DC wouldn't bow down to anyone, not even the Rolling Stones. So instead of joining the Stones tour, they booked their own shows. And in an incredible display of self-belief, they ended up playing many of the same arenas and selling them out. For any other band, turning down the Rolling Stones might have been career suicide. But for AC/DC, it became one of the smartest moves they ever made. Fans wanted the full AC/DC experience, not a shortened opening set. They came to hear their songs, their way. The gamble totally paid off. AC/DC's own tours were a huge success. Angus Young later explained that they never wanted to be known as an opening act. Every night, they gave audiences everything they had. Playing half-length sets for someone else's crowd went against everything they believed about rock and roll. This decision didn't just shape their career, it sent a message to the entire music industry. AC/DC showed that new bands didn't have to rely on older acts to make it big. They could stand on their own. Many younger rock bands took note and followed that same path. And while the story sounded like a rivalry, there was never real bad blood. The Rolling Stones respected AC/DC's decision, even if they were surprised by it. Over time, the relationship between the two bands grew into genuine mutual respect. Coming in at number 5 is Deep Purple. Back in 1975, Sunbury Festival should have been AC/DC's breakthrough moment on home soil. Instead, it became a violent backstage brawl that left AC/DC refusing to take the stage. Deep Purple's arrogance and their roadies' aggression created a situation that nearly destroyed the entire festival. Deep Purple was the biggest international band booked for the Sunbury Festival outside Melbourne. They were paid $60,000, which was massive money for any band in 1975. The festival organizers spent most of their budget on Deep Purple's enormous appearance fee. A lot of the Australian bands on the lineup ended up leaving without getting paid. AC/DC was still a young band trying to make their mark on the Australian music scene. They had not even released their first album yet, but were generating buzz. The Sunbury Festival was their chance to play in front of thousands of fans. The exposure could have launched them into the big time across Australia, but Deep Purple arrived at the festival with an attitude that rubbed everyone the wrong way. They had their own luxury caravans backstage, while local bands shared one small van. Deep Purple acted like they were too good to associate with the Australian musicians. Their roadies were described as big, intimidating men who pushed other bands around. The trouble started when Deep Purple decided to change the running order at the last minute. They were supposed to close the show but wanted to go on earlier instead. Bad weather and low attendance made them nervous about staying until the end. Their management demanded that AC/DC give up their scheduled time slot without any discussion. AC/DC refused to be pushed around by Deep Purple's demands for special treatment. Angus and Malcolm Young told festival organizers they would play their assigned slot or not at all. The Young brothers had worked too hard to let another band dictate their performance schedule. Their producer George Young supported their decision to stand their ground against the pressure. Deep Purple's roadies became aggressive when AC/DC would not back down from their position. The roadies surrounded AC/DC's small crew and started making physical threats and demands. They told AC/DC they would not be allowed on stage after Deep Purple performed. The situation became tense and dangerous as more people got involved in the argument. A full-scale backstage fight broke out between the two bands and their crews. AC/DC's roadie Tana Douglas later wrote about the chaos in her book about touring. She described how Deep Purple's crew physically attacked AC/DC's people and tried to destroy their equipment. The violence continued for several minutes before security managed to regain control of the backstage area. After the fight ended, AC/DC made the decision that shocked the entire festival. They refused to perform their set and walked away from the biggest gig of their career. The Young brothers weren't about to let Deep Purple or anyone else in the music industry push them around. They packed up their equipment and left the festival grounds immediately. The decision cost AC/DC money and exposure, but earned them respect from Australian music fans. Newspapers wrote stories about how AC/DC stood up to the international bullies. The publicity from the incident actually helped their career more than playing the show would have. Fans admired their refusal to be pushed around by a bigger, more established band. Deep Purple performed their set but received criticism for their treatment of local musicians. The festival organizers blamed them for causing problems and driving away other acts. At number 4, we had Motley Crue. Now, this one was wild. Back in 1984, during the Monsters of Rock tour in Stockholm, Motley Crue pulled one of the craziest backstage pranks you'd ever heard. And it ended with AC/DC saying, "Never tour again with Motley Crue." Crue were famous for being over the top, but at that point, they had this weird habit they thought was funny. They actually bite people. Yeah, not a joke. They called it a way of bonding. According to Crue's band manager, Doc McGee, when they bit you, it was like a dog bite. They'd bite you right in the middle of the forehead, they'd bite you in the arm. So one night, Nikki Sixx decided to mess with Eddie Van Halen. He bit him on the shoulder, and then Vince Neil joined in. Eddie completely lost it, grabbed Vince by the face, and slammed him onto a table. The whole backstage scene became total chaos instantly. Right in the middle of it all was AC/DC's Malcolm Young, just watching this insanity. Nikki turned toward him, maybe thinking he would join in, but Malcolm just glared at him and said, "You bite me, mate, and I'll chew your ear off." But Nikki didn't back off. He grabbed Malcolm by the hair and slammed him against the wall, and that's when the whole place exploded. Tommy Lee and David Lee Roth immediately got involved, and the whole thing turned into a massive fight. Security had to rush in and stop it before somebody got seriously hurt. Afterward, Motley Crue's manager Doc McGee had to spend the rest of the tour apologizing to everyone. Motley Crue were kicked out of their hotel for the incident. From that day on, AC/DC refused to tour with Motley Crue ever again. At number 3, we have the legendary band Kiss. In the late 1970s, AC/DC was trying to make it big in America. Their big break came from an unexpected place, none other than Kiss. Gene Simmons was walking through a small club in Los Angeles when AC/DC took the stage. From the moment he saw Angus Young tear across the stage in his school uniform, he was hooked. Angus gave an incredible performance, never slowing down even when the lights went out between songs. After the show, Simmons went backstage to meet the band and was shocked to see that Angus was missing his 2 front teeth. The band couldn't even afford dental work. Still, Simmons saw something special. He took Angus to a diner nearby, where the young guitarist ordered a Frankfurter and beat something that seemed strange to the American rock star. But Simmons could tell how hungry, literally and figuratively, these guys were to make it in the music business. Right away, Gene started making calls to help AC/DC. He arranged for them to open for Kiss on their massive Alive 2 tour, a huge opportunity that put the Australians in front of packed arena crowds across America. For many fans, it was their first time seeing AC/DC, and they were blown away. People came to see Kiss but left talking about AC/DC. One concert goer remembered the crowd chanting, "AC/DC, AC/DC," while waiting for Kiss to come on. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley were just as impressed. Stanley later said that Angus's energy was mind-boggling. Simmons said he was glued to the wall by the band's raw power. At the time, Kiss was one of the biggest arena acts in America, and their support helped AC/DC get noticed. But as the two bands toured together, it became clear they were built on completely different ideas of what rock music should be. Kiss thrived on spectacle makeup, costumes, fire-breathing, and explosions. AC/DC wanted nothing to do with that. Their focus was pure, straightforward rock and roll. No gimmicks, no distractions. The contrast led to tension backstage. AC/DC believed music should speak for itself. To them, Kiss's theatrical approach distracted from the song. Malcolm and Angus Young just wanted the band to be totally authentic, with all raw sound and real energy. They thought Kiss represented everything fake about commercial rock in America. Kiss, on the other hand, thought AC/DC was too stubborn. Simmons and Stanley believed a great rock show should excite all the senses. To them, the makeup and theatrics weren't gimmicks. They were part of the experience. They couldn't understand why anyone would reject that. They got into big debates over what defined real rock and roll. AC/DC accused Kiss of caring more about merchandise than music. Kiss fired back that AC/DC didn't understand showmanship or how to connect with fans. AC/DC also disliked how business-minded Kiss was. They didn't want to be known for branding or marketing. They wanted to be known for playing loud, honest rock. The Young brothers refused to treat music like a corporate product. One writer who saw the 1976 tour remembered Angus and Bon Scott leaving a Kiss show early, fed up with the theatrics. Eventually, the tension became too much. Kiss stopped inviting AC/DC to open their shows. Both bands went their separate ways, each sticking to their own vision of rock. Kiss continued to dominate arenas with makeup, fire, and merchandise. AC/DC built their legend on authenticity and pure sound, and in the long run, AC/DC's commitment to being real paid off. When the flashy, overproduced style of the 1980s collapsed and grunge took over in the 90s, AC/DC didn't need to reinvent themselves. They were already seen as genuine, a band that never sold out. At number 2, we have Aerosmith. Aerosmith was one of America's biggest rock bands in 1978 with hits like Dream On. They invited AC/DC to join their America tour that year, aiming to help the Australian band break into the American market. The tour should have been a perfect partnership between established American stars and hungry Australian newcomers. Instead, it became a disaster that embarrassed both bands and their management teams. AC/DC was still relatively unknown in America and needed the exposure desperately. They had released Highway to Hell, but were not yet household names outside Australia. Opening for Aerosmith could be an incredible opportunity to perform in front of massive audiences in major American cities. The opportunity was exactly what they needed to build their reputation in the world's biggest music market. But Aerosmith was deep into their addiction by 1978. Steven Tyler and the band were so intoxicated during most shows that they could barely stand. They forgot lyrics, missed cues, and played sloppy versions of their hit songs. Audiences came to see professional rock shows and instead got embarrassing displays of substance abuse. AC/DC arrived at every show ready to deliver their best performance possible. They were hungry for success and treated every opportunity seriously and professionally. Bon Scott and the band gave everything they had during their opening sets. Their energy and enthusiasm often upstaged the headline act they were supposed to be supporting. But many American audiences were not ready for AC/DC's raw, aggressive style of rock music. Fans came to hear Aerosmith's more radio-friendly hits and blues-influenced rock songs. AC/DC's harder sound and Bon Scott's wild stage presence confused crowds expecting something different. Some audiences responded with hostility and threw objects at the band during their performances. The worst incident happened in Fresno, California, where the crowd booed AC/DC mercilessly. Audience members threw cups and other objects at Angus Young during the performance. When Angus got hit in the face with a thrown cup, he grabbed the microphone. He told the entire crowd to go to hell and walked off stage immediately. Meanwhile, Aerosmith continued to embarrass themselves with terrible performances every night of the tour. Steven Tyler was so that he fell down multiple times during songs. The band could not remember their own hit songs and played confusing versions. Many fans left the venues before Aerosmith finished their headline sets because the shows were so bad. AC/DC members were disgusted by Aerosmith's unprofessional behavior and lack of respect for their fans. They watched established rock stars waste opportunities that AC/DC would have killed for. The contrast between their own dedication and Aerosmith's careless attitude created lasting resentment. AC/DC never forgot forgot how not to treat their audience and their craft. The tour did help AC/DC's reputation in unexpected ways despite the immediate problems. Music journalists wrote about how AC/DC outperformed the headline act every night. Their work ethic and dedication impressed industry insiders who would help their careers later. Aerosmith's problems got worse after the tour and nearly destroyed their career. They would not recover their reputation until the late 1980s when they got clean. So AC/DC left that tour and also refused all the future tour offers they received from Aerosmith. Finally, at number 1, we have Black Sabbath, a band whose story is filled with plenty of backstage brawls and drama. It all started when AC/DC landed a dream gig, opening for the godfathers of heavy metal, Black Sabbath, on their European tour. On paper, it was the perfect match. Two heavy, hard-driving rock bands tearing up the stage every night. But behind the scenes, things were far from perfect. AC/DC had just been dropped by their American record label after they heard Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. The band was frustrated, uncertain about their future, and looking to prove themselves. Meanwhile, Black Sabbath was going through some serious internal struggles and dealing with their own battles related to substance issues. At first, everything was going great. AC/DC's Bon Scott and Black Sabbath's Ozzy Osbourne connected through their mutual love for chaos and rock and roll. But one night on the road, things took a turn that would go down in rock legend. The story involves AC/DC's leader, Malcolm Young, and Black Sabbath's bassist, Geezer Butler. There are two very different versions of what happened that night. According to Malcolm Young, he was in the hotel bar when he spotted Geezer Butler, drunk and miserable, crying in his beer about being stuck in Sabbath for 10 long years. Geezer supposedly warned him, "Wait till you guys have been around 10 years, you'll feel like us." Malcolm said he gave him no sympathy and replied, "I don't think so." That's when, according to Malcolm, Geezer got angry, pulled out a silly flick knife, and started waving it around. But Geezer Butler tells it differently. He admits he had a knife, but says he had just bought it in Switzerland and was only playing with it, flicking it open and closed because he thought it was cool. He claims Malcolm came over, started mocking Sabbath. Geezer insists he never threatened Malcolm. It was just a drunken misunderstanding. Either way, the tension was rising fast. That's when Ozzy Osbourne walked into the bar. Seeing what was about to go down, Ozzy yelled at his bandmate, "You Butler, go to bed!" But according to ex-AC/DC bassist Mark Evans, Butler did wave the knife around, threatening Malcolm, and the bar started to clear as people realized things were about to explode. And Malcolm Young wasn't the type to back away from a fight. He charged in and knocked Geezer Butler out cold with just one punch. Butler hit the floor hard, out cold for several minutes, before hotel staff and crew members rushed in to break it up. The next morning, the fallout was immediate. Black Sabbath's management demanded AC/DC be kicked off the tour, calling Malcolm too violent and unpredictable. AC/DC were told to pack their gear and get out immediately. Malcolm later confirmed the whole story in interviews, saying Butler pulled the knife first and that he simply defended himself. He never apologized and never expressed regret, not even for knocking Butler unconscious. After that, whenever the chance came up to tour with Black Sabbath again, AC/DC refused. So that's the list of 6 bands AC/DC refused to tour with and the reasons behind those decisions. Each of these choices reflects the band's commitment to their unique style and the dynamics of the rock scene. Whether it was due to personal differences or artistic clashes, these stories add depth to AC/DC's legendary status in rock history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories about the world of music. Your support helps us bring you more great content.